Your clients didn't hire your carbon copy. They trusted you, so that next gen has to earn that trust in their own way.
If you're going to have the success that you want, it's not just hiring one, it's then hiring a second.
It's really going to be up to you as the visionary to have clarity on what the business needs next and not what you needed 20 years ago.
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Total Succession podcast. Quick question for you all listening today. When you start thinking about succession, do you imagine finding a younger version of yourself? Someone who thinks like you, talks like you, serves the clients just like you do? Most advisors, you out there might think you need to clone yourself before you move on to what's next. But succession is actually about preparing your business for someone different to then take it that next step. Tyson, give us your quick take on why it's so important to find a complement, not a clone, when you're thinking about succession.
One, because you're not who you started with, that's who you think you need to hire. And two, as I've been told, if I ever did hire anybody that was just like me, they'd drive me freaking nuts.
I would agree, but we don't need to dwell on that. So succession is not what it used to be, where you just need to replace the Rainmaker with the next Rainmaker. In today's landscape, you need to be thinking about your succession differently. You're dealing with generational shifts in this industry, and you have to keep that top of mind. And so, Tyson, let's break it down. Why do you think advisors fall into "I must have a mini me" trap?
Well, I think because they're going back to, I've heard so many advisors over my careers be like, I just need to hire the next Rainmaker. And it's just like, well, if they really knew they were a Rainmaker, or if they're an entrepreneur, they're going to go build their own business. They don't want yours. And if you just really step back and look at just, we're in investments, right? We see nothing but publicly traded companies all day long. And you have the entrepreneur, the one that had the dream or the vision that built the company. They aren't often replaced by another entrepreneur. They're replaced by somebody that can then manage and run the established company. And that's where you need to find someone with different skill sets than your own, and possibly a couple people that you need to take over the skill sets of your own. And that's where a lot of times I think people fail, because they're looking for that one person. And it's probably not one person. It's probably a couple different people that actually have interests, skills and talents, expertise in specific areas that you are wearing multiple hats, that as you are stepping away, need to give those hats not to one, but possibly to a couple people.
Here's something else I think we should consider, is that your clients didn't hire your carbon copy. Like, they trusted you, so that next gen has to earn that trust in their own way and not try to be a mini you. So if replacing yourself doesn't work, what does? So let's kind of talk through that a little bit.
I keep saying, if you have heard me say this a couple times now on these podcasts, it was realizing I didn't need to hire a Rainmaker to go out there and get the business. I needed to hire the caretaker to take care of the business that I had. And an example would be is this, like, I want to fix all these problems, but I started realizing I've fixed all my clients' problems, but I'm still in the annual review. And so can I identify people that care for, or look at the medical profession, right? I'm the surgeon that wants to do open heart surgery and fix this complicated patient and make them healthy. But then in the medical practice, that surgeon doesn't go back and annually meet with the patient, right? There's somebody else, there's a different skill set for caring for the client. And I knew from a relational standpoint, we wrote the book Total Relationship to spell it out. I knew we had this process. We had a way of gathering information on clients to identify what really matters to them. And a funny example of in the F and family, right? Their parents and the friends and family and people that they loved. But there's a category in there I would write down their pets, because I've had clients tell me they like their pets more than their kids sometimes.
Yeah, they're not as sassy.
Well, they do what they're told, and unconditional love, right? And at the same time, For some clients that didn't have kids, pets were almost that
Yeah,
they filled some of that void.
for
And so
sure.
when I started realizing I could hire people that care more about the pet than I do, I was onto something. And so that's where what you especially in that Gen 2 advisor, I think too many people are trying to bring in or box in an entrepreneur, a rainmaker, a go-getter in a job that's really a caretaker role, and how can they build these relationships and love the fact that they get to talk to the same people every couple of months and they don't have any problems other than the update on how, the dog is doing or how the vacation is and all these other things that are part of the living out of the planning.
Mhm.
It freed me up. It allowed me to know that when I'm sitting in the meetings and having this transition and that that associate that I've hired to step into that role I was fulfilling actually cared more about collecting the data and the documentation and checking the I's and dotting the T's and making sure the tasks are done and the follow up and all this other stuff was a way of freeing myself to be able to go grow and do greater things, because really what you might need to realize is the rainmaker's you.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, a strategic coach, Dan Sullivan, said the only reason why God only created, a certain percentage of the population to be rainmakers, entrepreneurs, visionaries, is because that's all that was needed to employ the rest of the world.
Again, Dan Sullivan is not wrong. But that touches on something really important, Tyson, is that you are not looking to hire another visionary for your company. You are looking for someone to come in and help from the operational side, someone who's going to be there to help build and lead your team and bring that consistency. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, honestly, Kim, the burden I have right now is not the client service, it's the operational functions of the business. So get rid of the things that just drain you the most. And that's maybe where you take the first hat off and bring someone in who can complement you as the visionary. You can follow the EOS structure. We had a great podcast with Andrea on this, where you need to find yourself an integrator, or in Tyson and Kim language, you need to find yourself a Kim who can come in and help you with some of that and take that off your plate to free you up to focus on the other things that you can then take off of your list, because it's not going to happen all at once. Find the heaviest thing first and replace that person. Because the client service stuff might be the joy that you need that keeps you going as you're building out your succession plan. So don't let it get hunkered in and thinking that's the first thing you have to solve. Think through what your pain points are first and then seek to solve that.
At some point, you need, as the founder, the CEO, whatever your president, you've built, it's your company.
Mm.
What you need to start realizing is at some point you need to have enough stuff, right? You need to reach a certain level of wealth that I just kind of have enough. And now instead of taking every dollar of profit and trying to stick it in your pocket, can I reinvest some of this back into my team and pay for better than I can do?
Mm.
Can I pay for freedom that I now get to have? Can I pay to get the stress or the complexity of things off my plate? And there's a bit of a runway there where you might go sideways in your income, but once these people start, you start replacing yourself with 2 or 3 other people, and the traction starts kicking in. It's done without you. It's done consistently. The client service is being done, and you're assisted in that. Maybe the portfolio management, maybe the operations of things. All of a sudden, you start getting a multiplier, and then the income kicks back in, which gives you the ability to continue to pay in to get more, to get better, to get more freedom, to get a better quality of life. And what you're seeking to build is a self-managing company to a point where it is a company that can run without you. And if you build one of those, you're maximizing the value of that company, whether you choose to keep it or whether you choose to sell it.
Yeah. Well, Tyson, something we've heard common in this whole lane of succession is that if the visionary goes sideways for a while in compensation, maybe they're in a good place and they just kind of stay in that place. They're not seeking to build their monthly income anymore. They are seeking to build the enterprise value of their firm. And it's a shift that you have to make when you're looking at it that way. Because before it was just, what are you making? But it's like, are you looking at the value of what you have? Because in the succession and acquisition lane in our industry, that's where you're really going to receive and reap the rewards of selling your practice or whatever your succession transition is going to be as the founder, owner, majority shareholder is in that transition. So it's kind of you have to shift your mindset around that as well. Um,
Absolutely, and it's a
y-
process, and
yeah.
it's one hire at a time.
Yeah. And you kind of have to die to yourself every day when it comes to that process and realizing it's not going to happen all at once. So, Tyson, we've talked a lot about this and it's really important. So, I want to make sure we hit on this is mentorship. This next generation is not looking for you to give them a procedure manual or tell them, well, go figure it out because that's what I had to do. You need to kind of lead the charge in that mentorship role. And I think that's an important conversation. So what have you seen from your seat, the importance of mentorship and, speak to those of us listening who might not understand how important that really is in building out your next gen.
Yeah, it is simple, but it's not easy, and, it's slow until it's fast,
Mm.
and what it takes is it takes what businesses have done for hundreds of years that somehow we've gotten away from, which is apprenticing. I go back to I sat next to the senior advisor in my 20s and went and heard what he said and heard the questions that were answered, heard what the clients said, um, identified where I was going to step in and where I was asked to do specific things. And so, uh, over the years, what I've learned is that was the best way to teach is not to tell, but to model, to let them
Mhm.
see it. I One of the biggest takeaways I have with the Gen 2s that we still bring in that are sitting in meetings, and I may have meetings where I have the Gen 2 that's assigned to the client in the meeting, and then I'll introduce the client to the intern or the newest advisor we brought on, and they're just going to sit here and learn, listen, and clients are, I pick and choose, but for the most part, most clients are like, okay, because in when you're dealing with professionals, especially in the medical realm, there's a group of people that come in and follow behind
Yep.
the doctor to just hear what happens.
Yep.
And one of the things that I didn't realize um, I wasn't teaching when I was just letting the associate run with it, or it was my registered assistant that wasn't in the meetings, but then was following up, was one, when they're not in the meetings, they don't hear firsthand what's happening. They don't hear tone. They don't hear the emotion.
Mhm.
Right? And so there's a breakdown in communication when now you're trying to dictate or communicate back to an AI is going to help with some of this to some extent, but being in there, seeing it firsthand, all of the nonverbal communications, all the pausing, all the straining of thinking about what the answer is for the client to get it out, the how the two spouses maybe interact or partners interact. But one of the biggest takeaways that I've heard more often than not was the how much silence is I use to let the client sit and think and process. And I often end a meeting with saying several times, "Is there anything else?" Because they usually think of something. And then, "Is there anything else?" And then when they run out of anything else, that's when we know we can wrap the meeting up. It took time, but I have proven to myself time and time again how it is slow until it's fast. But because they sit through one annual review season with the clients and then they're following up the service, they heard the meetings, they were doing these things, they all of a sudden, I don't need to be in that second annual review. They can run with it. And then I'm just brought in to solve the problems that I love to solve
Mhm.
when they're identified that I'm needed.
Yeah. So it's really bringing in your complement, not a clone. Your successor doesn't have to do it all the way that you did, but they have to do their part really well. And so they're going to need your mentorship to kind of let that structure be in place so they can grow. And it's going to take you some time and it takes trust, and you're going to have some wrong fits. But it's really going to be up to you as the visionary to have clarity on what the business needs next. And not what you needed 20 years ago. So I'm going to share back to an example that we actually had on this podcast with an episode with Scott Danner, and he told us he stopped trying to duplicate himself and instead build a team of advisors with totally different strengths. One was better at managing the systems, another one was more empathetic than him in client meetings. And instead of forcing them to be a mini Scott, he built the roles around their unique ability and their value. And that really helped him gain better freedom, grow his business faster without having the loss of control that I think a lot of visionaries can struggle with. So, if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and check it out. It's a great case study on what it is really like to prepare your business for succession by building your team and not cloning yourself. So, Tyson, let's bring the space framework around this. This conversation perfectly lands squarely in the prepare category. So, and Tyson, I want to focus in on something that gets really overlooked way too often, the people side of preparation. What are the biggest mistakes founders make when they're trying to develop their team?
The assumption that they're good at teaching and managing people,
Mm,
or the assumption that the policies and procedures can be used as a teaching tool, or you can just read them and understand them. We were early adopters of the files software called Box, where you save files electronically. And I'll never forget the employee that we hired, and they were reading through the manual, and the manual said file things in Box, and he was literally looking in the office for where the box was that the files go in, not realizing there isn't one. It's in, right? It's just one of the mistakes we make is because we've done it so much, and because you've let other employees train other employees, that knowledge isn't necessarily, that knowledge is not necessarily a training tool.
mm,
And part of what works in building out this framework is taking the time to realize, hey, you know, in the SPACE acronym of seeing what your better future is, to see what it is you can let go of that drives you nuts, to focus on what you love. Um, in the concept of preparing is to realize, hey, are you downloading, teaching, and creating a training manual for that next gen? Because when you hire, if you're going to have the success that you want, which is to help more people, it's not just hiring one, it's then hiring a second.
mhm,
And credit to Kim, when our intern came in and got hired on full time, rather than having Kim again deal with the interns, we had the associate that was hired, who was an intern, now train the interns, and along the way look at the policy and procedures, look at the training manuals, what else needs to be in there, what questions do they ask, so we can basically continue to improve. And I think the concept that nothing, in this space concept, preparing your team to be able to have the answers that are in your head,
mm,
preparing the team, whether that's in documents and policies and procedures, or techniques, or what's talked about with a client, or what's gathered in meetings, is all part of the freedom that you can have when you basically set yourself up to basically not be needed in the business.
yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for the kind kudos there, about letting stuff go because it's hard. It's really hard. And so for those of you listening, this is not gonna be an easy thing for you to do, but it's worthy of your time and your energy because you need to you wanna have that freedom in your business, and it's giving your team the visibility and responsibility into the business so that they have the opportunity to step up into it and take ownership. Because if you own every part of it and you micromanage everything, they will never wrap themselves around your practice and your clients and your values the way that you want them to. And you need them to have a successful succession plan. So start small. Work with your in client meetings. What decisions can you let go of? In Andrea's podcast episode, we talk about delegate and elevate. What are the things that you don't like and you are not good at? Write that on a piece of paper because there's someone on your team who will take that off your plate and start with those pain points first so that you can start seeing them succeed and get that off your plate. Let your team stumble. They're not going to blow up your business. It's too important. And you're not going to give them those biggest things that will do that to your practice. So I really think it's important that you know it's going to take time. They're going to struggle. But if their heart's in the right place and their value aligned with you, they're really going to go there for you and they're going to really make it worth your time. I know that's hard for high achievers. I know that you want to do it all because you've got there that way, but it's the only way you are going to build a team that's going to last beyond your presence in the building, truthfully.
Yeah, and you may not I don't think it's possible for you to hire your clone. It is possible to have someone clone your behavior and clone your way of doing things that they then will do those same things, albeit within their skill sets and within their giftings.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. All right, so we're gonna land the plane. If you are listening to this and you feel stuck because you haven't found the one who can take over your business, maybe maybe that's not really the problem. Maybe it's not the candidates. Maybe it's the criteria of what you're looking for. So your thoughts for the week: who on your team could take one thing you're still doing that you shouldn't be? Delegate it, observe, and support them, and that's how your next gen leaders are really going to emerge. So take that one step to make that move, because I'm pretty sure right now there is someone on your team that you would trust, that could be your safe guinea pig person to take that next step. So Tyson, what do you want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I would say that if you could solve the problem, you would have done it already.
Mm,
And one of the ways to find what that one thing is that you could delegate or observe and transition is to empower your team. What would you love to take off my plate that I'm holding on to? And what needs to happen then for that transition? What needs to be spoken, what needs to be documented, what needs to be taught so that can happen? Because your team watches you stress out
mm,
and they want to help, but if you're still gripping control of everything, you're never going to fix your problem. And your
mm,
team can help you do that by just asking, "Hey, constantly be thinking about what can you take off my plates? So if I don't have to do it, I can be free to do what," and then you could ask them that. What's the one thing you wish I would focus on? And that would be all I did.
yeah. Yeah. Tyson, I love that it puts the team around the table with the visionary. Give them the freedom to ask those questions, give the visionary the opportunity to delegate some of that down and see who rises to the surface. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time, and we'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.